Hello, my fellow witches, occultists, and other magical practitioners. My name is Aiden, and today we're doing another Midmorning Ramble. So, it's snowing over here right now, so the lighting might not be the best, but yeah, here's our Virgin of Guadalupe candle that you saw in my last video. Yeah, let's just jump into today's topic. So, today I am going to be rambling about the anti-Abrahamic biases that our community has. So let's break this down a little bit. What is Abrahamicism in the first place? Abrahamicism is basically anyone who follows Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other smaller religions like them. They are people who follow the one true God, Yod He Vav He, Allah, God, the Christian God, Jesus Christ, and other smaller denominations that follow similar concepts, like Yazidism, for example, is Abrahamic, as far as I'm aware. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Basically, the people of the book. Anyways, so in our community, there's a lot of bias against them. Very anti-Abrahamic sentiments. Specifically against Christianity is where it's mostly at. That's what I've mostly seen. We are anti-Christianity, but not necessarily anti-Judaism or anti-Islam. It's really mostly focused on Christianity from what I've seen. Which is also kind of a bias that's more specific, but we'll get into that later. I personally think that it's really toxic for people to even have these biases in the first place. To have a mentality against an entire group of religions because they don't like them. Like, there's very few reasonings as to why people don't like these religions, as far as I'm aware. Like, I know people, a lot of pagans will be like, I have trauma from the church, which is understandable. However, you can't judge an entire religion based off of your experiences with one church. You have to separate the church and Christianity, which is separate Judaism from a single synagogue. You have to separate organizations and religions, if that makes sense. There is a lot of damage that is done when people discriminate or attack a singular religion because they don't like it. Because it makes a space very unsafe for a lot of people. It makes people feel that they aren't welcome there. When this community should be open to everyone, of all denominations, of all faiths, of all paths. It also really takes away a lot of interesting conversation people could have. Because people can talk about all sorts of different experiences with the divine. And I think that we should be more open to that. We should be more open to people talking about their experiences with the divine. That are not just neo-pagan centric, not just focused on polytheism, but also monotheism and how people experience monotheism as their experience with the divine. And even in monotheism, there's all sorts of other spirits that exist, like the jinn, the elementals, angels, demons, aerial spirits, and everything in between. The saints. The saints are really cool, I like to think. But there's definitely a huge bias against Abrahamic religion and the occult community. More specifically the witchy community, I've noticed, because in the greater occult community there's a lot less anti-Abrahamic sentiments, though there are definitely people who are very against Abrahamic thought and Abrahamic ideas, even though a lot of what our modern traditions are come from Abrahamic traditions. like the Golden Dawn is heavily inspired by Abrahamicism, even though it is Hermetic. Thelema has a lot of Abrahamic ideas. I mean, look at Babylon. That just comes straight from Revelations. Wicca comes from Thelema, which comes from the Golden Dawn, which is heavily inspired by Christian ideas and Jewish ideas. So there's that. Wicca has a lot of, especially Alexandrian Wicca has a lot of ideas from Abrahamic practices like Enochian magic or Solomonic magic. That's something that I'm working on right now personally, is my relationship with Solomonic magic, because I love Solomonic magic. I think it's some of the most powerful stuff you can do. It's crazy powerful and it's awesome, and the connection between you and the divine that you experience is so beautiful. However, I've really fallen out of it. I have a lot of issues trying to jump back into it because of its very Christian ideas. It's very like Christian ideologies, and I think that trying to work with that is very hard for me as someone who is not Christian. It's just very hard to try and work with that system when the system is not designed for me exactly. So I'm trying to effectively create my own version of it using different names, different archetypes, which has already been done by Alexandrian Wicca or Alexandrian witchcraft. But I really think that it can be pushed further and it can be developed into its own unique thing. More on that in another video probably, when I start actually working on that. I have theories and ideas, but I have not put it into practice yet. Currently, I'm trying to create a servitor with Solomonic magic, which should be interesting. I'm really excited for that. I'm fasting for that right now, which is super hard for me, but that's kind of the point of it, is that it's supposed to be super hard, it's supposed to push you, it's supposed to challenge you. Anyways, so the basic premise behind Solomonic magic is fasting, is preparation, is lowering yourself below God so you can reach the heights of God and connect with your holy guardian angel, your higher self, with the divine, with Adonai, so you can really reach the heights of what's possible, so you can command everything below you, below God, below the firmament. So you can make these earthly forces do your will. So you can even make these celestial forces do your will. You can command angels. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But it doesn't resonate with everyone, obviously. And I think that paganism offers an interesting take on connecting with the divine. And that's why so many people are drawn to it, is because it's less about hard, fast rules, hard, set-in rules that you have to follow exactly to the T, or else it won't manifest for you, which already isn't really true. You can alter things a bit. You can make your own changes and your own differences. But I digress. Overall, Solomonic magic is... I'm using Solomonic magic as an example because that's something I'm really familiar with. But with Solomonic magic, there's a lot of humbling yourself before God. Whereas in paganism, you can even treat yourself as on equal footing with some of the gods, seeing them as business partners, less as something higher and above you. In some sects. In other sects, There are people who very much humble themselves before their gods, who will very much bow down and worship before the gods. But what every time I've noticed is that it's very different type of worship than Christian worship. Because I'm familiar with Christianity because I grew up in the Catholic Church, in a Catholic household. So that is what I'm used to, that is what I'm normalized around, and that is what makes the most sense to me. Because that's what I was raised with, and therefore it just clicks for me. However, I understand a lot of people don't follow that, and we're not raised in that. We're raised in maybe more Protestant sects of Christianity, or we're raised Jewish, or raised Islamic, or all sorts of other different things. It provides an interesting perspective, and I think a lot of people lose out on all the different perspectives that Christianity has to offer when you just say, nah, no thanks, I'm not going to pay attention to anything in there. There's nothing of value in there. It's just all monotheistic, masculine God, which isn't even true because their God is transcendental. He goes beyond gender. He is the all. He is much more than a angry singular God. Like, to me, I feel like Christianity provides very interesting perspective on monotheism. The idea of a loving God who sacrificed himself on the cross for all of us. Which, while the dying God motif is not unique, sacrificing yourself for your people is a little bit more unique. Having your own king sacrifice himself for all his people to benefit from, and to save them from their sins, is a very unique concept. As far as I've read, there could be other places where it's used. Just as long as you're not quoting Mithras, I'm fine, as if you correct me on that. Because we have no information on Mithras. That's the whole point. Anyways. The idea of the dying God is not unique. But it is taking a unique perspective with Christianity. I think we can all look at that from a mythological standpoint and analyze that and use that in our own practices, however we want to use that. Because to me, I see ourselves as our own Christ, our own saviors, and we need to die for ourselves. We need to die to ourselves to attain enlightenment, to attain higher greatness. Sacrifice is in order for all sorts of magical operations. Whether it be a simple sacrifice of your time and materials, or a sacrifice of your full self and a sacrifice of your ideologies and your old ideas. You must sacrifice everything on the altar at some point to reach the fullness of divinity, in my opinion. You need to sacrifice everything to reach the fullness of divinity and to really attain higher knowledge. Because you need to get rid of everything earthly to attain that which is not of the earth. Which is not a path for everyone, honestly. Not everyone wants to gain full enlightenment. That's perfectly fine. There's no shame in that at all. It's a scary path that not everyone wants to take. Some people would rather just use their magic to improve their life and their friends' lives and the lives of those around them without going into a deep dive, which is perfectly fine. You don't need to go into a deep dive with occultism. However, for those who do want to go into a deep dive, you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot. A lot of your ideas and pet projects and your theories or whatever, all of that will die on the altar of enlightenment. Everything will fall apart and will fall away when you realize how big divinity is, and how incomprehensible it is. Your personal gnosis will die on the altar of enlightenment. I've had it happen before. Trying to understand the fullness of divinity through limited perspectives always backfires. Because divinity is not limited to anything. Divinity is in everything. In my experiences, everything is filled with divinity. Everything is flowing with spirit. Everything is flowing with God. Everything has the monad in it. Whatever you want to call it, it's in everything. And I think that we don't realize that all the time. Especially we don't realize that the divine is in our fellow man. Which, circling back around, is why we have all these different perspectives, and we all need to get along and respect these different perspectives, because they all have something of value to offer. While I personally believe no religion is true, I believe that every religion has something to offer to the table. Every religion has some critique, has some points, has some, even if it's minuscule, they have some value to them that no other religion has, that they bring to the table and that they offer. Everything has some level of truth to it. I don't believe any of them have the full truth. However, they do have some truth to them. And we need to value that, and we need to look at that and say, yes, that is useful to me. I can take that, and I can understand the world from another perspective. Because when we're able to understand the world from different perspectives, we're able to become a more full person and be able to see everything from a more unique perspective. And these different perspectives allow us to gain insight on the divine, on the nature of the world, on everything around us. And you can find beauty in everything. While you let's say you're a Wiccan and you don't believe in the monotheistic God and you worship only the goddess, you can find value in, let's say, Jewish practice. Let's say you find their cleansing very valuable. You find their methods of humbling themselves before God to be extremely empowering, and you take that and you apply it to your own religion, to your understanding of the goddess, and you apply that to how you practice. You aren't appropriating it. You aren't trying to practice Judaism without being Jewish. You are understanding their religion and taking concepts from that and applying it to your own religion. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because I don't support appropriation. I support appreciation. And using other people's ideas for cultural mixing, cultural blending. Because you look all the way back, even to the PGM, which is like Egyptian magic. There is so much cultural blending between Greeks, between Egyptians, between Jews, between everyone in that area. And they all blend everything together and make this beautiful grimoire that has so many different magic spells in it that, well, they're outdated today because we don't really have access to all the materials, we'll put it that way, in a PG way, PGM way. Their practices are still useful to today. And we can see what the people of that time really wanted in their lives, what they needed in their lives, and what they wanted to improve in their lives. And so they went to magic to make those changes, to make those applications. And it's really cool to see, because we see how people use magic throughout history. And throughout history, time and time again, they have used magic to connect with the divine, with their concept of the divine. I think that no one's connection to the divine should be blocked out of our community. We shouldn't try to say that because someone's connection to the divine is from a specific religion, that they cannot be a part of our community. Christian magicians have existed since the beginning of Christianity. I think that Christian magic is a very interesting source of magical power, and it has a really unique flavor to it, I guess, is one way to describe it. And I think that we can all learn something from it. We can all apply something from it, and it's not completely useless. In fact, a lot of neo-paganism is founded on these Christian practices because it's what we have today. Most neo-pagans are not practicing ancient pre-Christian religion. They aren't practicing ancient pre-Christian rituals because we don't have access to all of those. We have a very limited account of what magic does exist and what methodologies they had. And honestly, it was the best that we got, and we just have to reconstruct what we know. We can get information from the spirits, of course, but we have to understand that magic comes from all sorts of different sources. No religion owns magic. Magic is untamed and is wild. And it's our job to understand other people's magic and understand their connection to the divine and how we can learn from each other. So I think that's enough rambling from me today. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll see you all. Enjoy your solstice. If I don't make a video for solstice, enjoy your solstice. And enjoy your Christmas. And I'll see you all later. Bye.